everybody. Welcome to another Infinite Danger Room podcast. I am Matt Price. We're here at Speeding Bullet Comics with Chris Borthick, Matt Howlett, and Anthony Brown. Hopefully you've caught some of our episodes on News OK, where we've been releasing episodes talking about comics and related things. And tonight we're going to talk about Batman the Killing Joke, the animated version of the Alan Moore written comic book. It's been released limited in theaters, and then it's going to be coming to DVD here shortly. And our panelists here have all seen the movie. They're going to kind of give us their take on it, give you some pros and cons. So what do you think, guys? Let's just maybe start with how'd you like the movie? What'd you think? Chris, you want to start and then go around?
Well, I really enjoyed the movie. I was, of course, a huge fan of the comic book back in the day, so I thought it was really well done. And particularly, I did enjoy the Batgirl character development for the movie, which was probably necessary thanks to the story itself depended on originally you knowing Batgirl and her background, and people watching it for the first time may not. But overall, I thought it was a really good movie.
I enjoyed it. There were a few aspects of it that I didn't like, but the things that I walked away from the movie feeling were, wow, I'm really disgusted by the Joker. Like, just the movie conveyed a feeling about the Joker that the comic just couldn't quite give me. But halfway through the movie, I'm just like, wow, the Joker. I want Batman to kill him at the end. I mean, he's crossed that line where it's no longer funny, which maybe that's why they call it the Killing Joke. And it was just kind of, there's some imagery in this movie that was a little upsetting, I guess, maybe just from the perspective of Batgirl and whatnot. So, but we can kind of flesh that out a little bit more.
Anthony, what do you think?
I really enjoyed the movie. For those of you listening that maybe have not heard it, and if we get this out before the movie drops, it is rated R for a reason. So there are some things within the movie that are a little bit, or not a lot, a little bit. They are very adult in nature. Some language, some tones that are set forth throughout the movie. But I really did enjoy it. It had been a really long time since I had seen or read The Killing Joke. So there were some things I was just like, oh yeah, I remember this part, or that was a little bit different. And I think that's one of the great things that DC Animation has done whenever they dive back into the classics. Whenever they push those things out, it makes the classics they feel a little bit better because they don't tell the exact same story. So Under the Red Hood was a little bit different. This movie was obviously a little bit different. Superman, Batman, the Supergirl movie was a little bit different. And then also they just announced at Comic-Con that they're going to do the Judas contract with the Teen Titans, and I don't know if based on the most recent Justice or Teen Titans iteration from the Justice League versus Teen Titans, whether they're going to use that cast or whether they're going to use the classic cast. But that's probably the most famous Teen Titans story about Terra and Deathstroke and that entire thing, and it was done really well in the cartoon for DC. So I'm very interested to see how this is going to move forward. But I think that this adaptation of The Killing Joke was done really well.
What was it? A few things that have come out online. Is it too dark? Is it too sexist? Is it unfortunate for this to be maybe a more prominent positioning of Batgirl, but then obviously she just becomes a victim? I mean, any problems with that? What do you guys think about any of those concerns that have kind of bubbled up among people?
I think it has to be dark because of the story and the material, and the thing about the Joker, as Matt was saying, he didn't like the Joker in this one. Well, I mean, historically, you shouldn't like the Joker. The Joker is a crazy, insane murderer. I mean, he's been funny to watch in the animated series. He's been, you laugh and you find yourself unconsciously laughing at his lines, and I found myself probably much like Matt during this one when his lines would go out and I would hear audience members laughing. I wasn't. I didn't think it was that funny anymore. So,
yeah, I mean, as far as the tone of it, I mean, the beginning of the movie sets up Batgirl as the hero. I mean, she's the main character for the first half of it, and you're rooting for her, and she kind of overcomes. She loses in a battle against this minor villain, And at the very end, Batman's going to get some. She comes in and saves the day, and you're like, all right, great. Barbara Gordon, Batgirl, she had a victory. She proved to Batman that she can do it. But the whole time, she's just pining for Batman, for Bruce Wayne's attention, and she kind of comes off as an accessory to him. It's like towards the middle of the movie, all of a sudden, it's not about her anymore. She's out of the picture. Now it's Batman going after the Joker, and it felt like two stories that maybe didn't necessarily need to join together. Like the first part of it was like a Batman Adventures episode, rated R, that could have just stood on its own. And then you had the Killing Joke, and they just kind of tied together loosely by it just being shown at the same theater at the same time. But that's just my opinion about the Batgirl aspect of it. I mean, it wasn't necessary for the Killing Joke. The Killing Joke wasn't really necessary for the beginning of the movie. They were like two separate stories that just kind of barely tied together.
Well, I think that was the trick about doing a project like this. DC had to introduce Batgirl to a whole new group of people because with the way that DC is currently doing things, they're trying to reintroduce their history to a whole new group of people through their animated projects. So people who maybe only have fringe associations with Batman and Joker and things like that through mass media outlets may not have ever read The Killing Joke, may not know anything of Batgirl beyond maybe what they remember from, the TV classics with the red phone under the jar, right? Or wherever you came into Batgirl on the spectrum, Alicia Silverstone, or again, wherever you met the character. So they had to reintroduce her at some point, and they actually delved into that at the end of the Justice League versus Teen Titans when they did the preview for it. They said, hey, we had to create a story for her so the people that don't know her can get to know her, or at least set up the character, for some of the things that they feel like are to come if they decide to pursue some of the things, and I don't want to spoil the end of the movie, that are going to happen with Barbara, or that happen with Barbara if you aren't familiar with her history as a comic book character. As for the things that are being said up online about it being too dark, I think some of that may be, and again, I don't know the people's perspective, but it may be a little bit of ignorance about the story itself, because The Killing Joke is historically probably the darkest Joker story that's out there. And, even some of the more recent stuff that's come out from the DC New 52 tries to hit on some of that a little bit. Maybe the Dark Knight story is a little bit darker, where Joker's involved in that. But by and large, The Killing Joke is the point where Joker says, okay, I'm not here to be funny, I'm here to be serious. And he says that a couple of different times in the movie, like, I'm not here to play games. Like, this is personal. And when Batman's hunting him down throughout the film, he didn't stop at his regular stops. Oh, yeah, we usually see him within 10 minutes, right? Like, he's usually over here. Hey, he usually shakes us down, a day or two after we hear that he's gotten out. He didn't do any of that. Like, he got straight to business, which was, giving Batman grief. And so if it's too dark, if it's too grisly, they told you up front it was rated R. I mean, were people expecting something lighter from Deadpool when they said, hey, Deadpool was going to be rated R? So, I mean, to me, if the movie's rated R, know what you're walking into. But also, if you're going to criticize what the story is, maybe you should be a little bit more familiar, or at least expect that it was, because it's rated R, it's going to be a little bit darker.
Okay. Do you think, and we'll go around the other way this time, does it diminish Batgirl to introduce her as a romantic foil for Batman as opposed to just somebody who wants to prove herself as a crime fighter?
I think that they had to, again, make the connection between her just being another sidekick for Batman, because in the movie and in the comic book, I mean, when she gets shot, it's a big deal. But if she's nothing more than his sidekick, and she's out here, tooling around trying to beat up a bad guy, and then all of a sudden the Joker shows up on her doorstep and shoots her, then, is Batman as charged up as he was? Is he breaking knuckles and breaking faces the way that he is? If I think that's how they had to tie it together, because unless you're going to pull a lot more of the Bat history into this and start talking about, Nightwing and what happened with Jason Todd and everyone else, even though there was a picture of Jason Todd in the Batcave where, he got killed by the Joker. Unless you're going to do all of those things, I think that you had to find a way to connect it to say that, what he did not only made Batman snap, but it was, that's what made Batman snap, and the Joker was already at that point. So part of this was, at the end of this, at the climax, is Batman going to reach the same point? And this is really going to be the Joker's killing joke. Like, this is going to be the joke that he tried that got him killed, or, this is going to be the one where Joker kills Batman. So, to me, the name kind of ties it in as well, in that the gravity of the situation, and even when Batman goes to visit him in the cell, right, they have this exchange, like, I'm at the point that this isn't a game, and one of us may die. I may kill you, you may kill me, but one of us is going to die ultimately from this, because the stakes keep getting ratcheted up.
What do you think, Matt?
I was not to kind of divert from what you were saying. I was a little uncomfortable about the romantic scene between Batman and Batgirl that just kind of came out of nowhere, and it was a little off-putting for me. I don't know. I just think that it was an inappropriate scene. So I guess I disagree a little, and maybe that wasn't the point you're trying to make, Anthony, but that it could have just been a sidekick trying to get her mentor's attention and try to prove herself to him, but instead she throws herself on top of him, and to keep it PG, just it pretty much pans up, and it leaves a lot to the imagination, but what had happened, and they mention it later in the show. But I mean, Batman ignores her. He doesn't want to talk to her about the relationship, and it seems like she's just kind of another. For him, maybe it was just another thing, or maybe he regretted it. But it just seemed really weird, since he's kind of a mentor figure, teacher. I always assumed Batman was maybe just 10 or 15 years younger than Commissioner Gordon. Batgirl's in her early 20s. I guess that's always the age group I had identified it with. So it seemed like Batman was a much older man with a younger girl. It just seemed weird. So I was kind of weirded out by that.
What do you think, Chris? Does it diminish Batgirl as a character to put her in this type of relationship with Batman?
I don't necessarily think so. I mean, this has been alluded to in other animated series before, like Batman Beyond, for example. There's a pretty strong story arc that indicates they had been together at one point and then kind of split off. So I mean, it's not unheard of. It doesn't really weaken her. I think what's interesting about her story in this particular movie, though, as you look at it, without, again, giving too much away, this is her story about that it's that fixation on someone that you really can't have and really shouldn't have, but she finally gets what she wants, and it's really not good like she thinks it's going to be. So, I mean, in some way, and she makes a lot of choices, and that is one thing about her mini arc. I think she makes some ultimately good choices for herself, regardless of what happens later in the movie, because she kind of figures out that, yeah, maybe this is not the way I want to go. So, but I feel like overall, it's just kind of one of those, oh, that wasn't a great idea. Like when, it's the classic when friends sleep together. Sometimes that's not really what you think it's going to be.
All right, animation style. I mean, Brian Bolland has a very definitive style in the comic, probably hard to replicate exactly in animation, and I'm not even sure they exactly tried to, but what do you think of the animation style they used for it? Did it convey the story? Did it reflect the comic? What were your thoughts on it?
Actually, I think they really captured Boland's art pretty well. I mean, it looked like a moving version of a lot of his panels a lot of times, so I think that they made a good choice with it.
There were a few scenes where the Joker takes off the red hood and he sees his reflection and he goes mad and he's laughing and it focuses on his face. I mean, that was almost just ripped straight from the comic. As far as the animation goes, and this is kind of the trend for new DC animated films, it's a little on the cheap side, I would say, as far as that it's not fully animated. I felt like it was a little maybe they cut some corners on the animation here, but having seen Batman, Dark Knight, I mean, it's pretty much consistent with what they've been putting out lately. It's, I guess, in some parts, it's just a step better than the cheesy Marvel motion comics that came out 5-6 years ago, where they just took the comics and just added a little bit of animation, made them look like they're talking and moving around. That's kind of what it reminded me of a little bit. So I wasn't too crazy about the animation, but there's some action scenes that were pretty intense. And maybe it's not much different than the 90s animated series, and I'm just remembering that differently because of being a kid and not really knowing much about animation at the time, so not knowing if it was better or not. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I wasn't crazy about the animation, but I know it's consistent with what they've been putting out so far.
Okay. Anthony?
I thought it was spot on. I had no problems with it, and I mean, I'm a connoisseur of cartoons, so I think that there were several iconic images that they were able to, I mean, just absolutely hit. I mean, it's like they just took the panel from the comic, stuck it on the screen, and kept it moving. Like it was that identical to what they did, and they did this in a couple other of their projects as well. So I mean, I really appreciated that for the people that were hardcore, who had read the story or had seen it. Again, when Barbara gets shot, there's an iconic image of the Joker and his eyes and the Hawaiian shirt that he has. I mean, all that stuff was there. It was all right there, and it hit those notes. With that, I guess the only issue that I have with the animation, and it's maybe the voice of Harvey Dent. I wasn't a fan of his voice. Outside of that, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the casting, with the animation, with the product itself. Again, I'll spend the $20 or whatever it is for the Blu-ray combo pack and add it to my collection, watch it again when the kid's asleep, and enjoy it.
Well, let's start back with you on that, and then have everybody kind of take a swing at voice acting. One of them you didn't like, most of them you did. Why don't you kind of talk about what worked, what didn't, about in the voice acting category?
Well, Kevin Conroy is Batman to me. Like, to me, it is a disservice to try to be the person that follows him because in DC's projects, because I mean, he's like. When you have greatness, and sometimes greatness just can't be described, but when you're in the midst of it, you can spot it, and you know that you're witnessing something great, right? So, and that to me is Kevin Conroy's Batman. All of the other characters and their voices, they come and go, and that's fine. Mark Hamill's Joker again is just as iconic because I have no connection to Star Wars. I had no idea he was Luke Skywalker until probably 6 months ago when I was watching The Flash, and I was just like, oh, that's the guy that's the voice of the Joker and like I'd never seen his face and I'd never seen Star Wars, so I was just like, oh, that guy's Luke Skywalker too. Okay, whatever. I just know him as the voice of the Joker because he was the toy man or the trickster or whoever he was in the WB Flash, and so that's where I come in on it. But I thought the voice acting was phenomenal, and maybe I'll get kicked off the podcast or get panned on Twitter and other message boards for not knowing that, but we all have to prune our nerd tree at some point, and so Star Wars and Star Trek didn't make it onto mine.
Man,
so
I feel like we should do a Star Wars commentary with Anthony now.
Agreed.
I
was just thinking that.
Who is this guy? What is?
I couldn't tell you. I often get the characters confused about who's in what series.
I think that would be fun. Is this guy Spock? Who is this guy?
Exactly. So I still have no idea what a Wookiee or a Chewbacca is, and so I'm just like, whatever.
We should do a live tweeting.
That would actually be a pretty great audio commentary. All right, Matt, voice acting in Killing Joke.
I don't know how I follow that. I didn't know Mark Hamill was Luke Skywalker. Well, okay, all right, I'll let it go.
I appreciate it.
Kevin Conroy, I would agree with Anthony. I mean, I don't know how long he plans on being Batman, but I hope it's until he can.
As long as he can.
As long as he can. I mean, the only other voice actor that I've enjoyed being as Batman is probably I think it's Diedrich Bader. He did Batman: Brave and the Bold. All the other ones just sound different. It's like when Jim Henson died and Kermit the Frog didn't sound the same anymore, and You had Steve Whitmer doing the voices, and it just sounded like Rizzo the Rat doing a Kermit the Frog impression. But anyway, that's just a little Muppet trivia. But yes, I love him as Batman. Mark Hamill did great as the Joker. And it was funny, we're talking about Luke Skywalker. There's the scenes where he was normal, just a man, or whatever you want to call it, and he's talking, and I'm hearing Luke Skywalker's voice, and that's the only role I really known Mark Hamill as, other than the Joker. I haven't seen really any of his other movies or whatever voice acting. He hasn't really done a whole lot other than that, from my perspective. I didn't really notice the Harvey Dent's voice acting. I mean, it felt like he only had like one or two lines, if anything. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention during that part. But Commissioner Gordon was great. I think it was Tara Strong that did the voice of Batgirl. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, did she do voice work for the Batman animated series in the 90s? I know she does like My Little Pony and some other things, but
She's been in some animated projects. I can't remember without doing the Google
I don't know
foo.
for sure. She might have been, though.
Yeah.
And Hamill's done a lot of voice stuff. None of it has probably been as iconic as the Joker, but he's done a lot of other things that, like, you'd recognize it if you looked at the IMDb or whatever.
Sure.
But it's not necessarily immediately recognizable as him. Voice acting. What do you
Okay.
think?
Well, I again echo the Kevin Conroy. You know, wheel him around in a chair if we have to. Just let's get him to the studio whenever we can. I will echo Anthony on Harvey Bullock, because the Harvey Bullock voice to me will always be the animated series Harvey Bullock voice, and I don't think it quite matched up to that. Especially when you have Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill from the animated series, so you're kind of like, well, where's Harvey? It was different.
Is it Bullock or Dent?
Bullock? Sorry, Bullock. Did I say?
is it Bullock?
Yeah, it's
Were
Bullock.
you talking about Bullock? I
Bullock.
said Dent.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, no wonder I didn't recognize any lines from him. I don't think he
Okay.
had any. I was
Okay.
thinking-
All right.
Okay, so Harvey Bullock, different voice from, say,
Right,
the animated
yeah,
series,
yeah,
and
so-
you guys didn't like
Okay,
it as well.
I could agree with you guys on that.
Yeah.
For Bullock could sound off.
Now, what about would Adam West have been as good? If we got Adam West to do it, would that have been...
Well, I think Adam West deserves a cameo because he was the original Batman live action. But
There's some rumor that they're going to do something with him, and I don't know if it's one of these type of things or what, which I think would be cool. But
I will say on the voice thing too, one of the cool things about the theater version, and I'm sure this is going to be on the DVD, but there is a great opening where they open with Mark Hamill and they talk to him extensively about, you know, how he gets Star Wars, and then he slides into the Batman animated series and how he wanted to be a part of the show and audition, and it's a great little backstory, and he is super gracious actually toward all the Jokers, which I thought was kind of cool because he is one of the iconic Jokers now. But yeah, overall, good stuff.
all right, cool. Well, let's wrap around one more time. Just final words, final thoughts as we wrap up our thoughts on the Killing Joke animated movie.
Well, I thought it was a fantastic adaptation, and I think if you were a fan of the comic book, you're going to love it. Just don't show your kids.
Matt?
You know, one thing I forgot to mention about the Joker is there's one scene where he says, he's talking about his history, and he says, I prefer multiple choice. That was one thing that kind of came up, and I wondered, you know, was that whole backstory just really the joke, saying that, you know, oh, he was this nice guy that just got, you know, down on his luck and made a bad decision. You know, maybe he really is just a mastermind villain. He's always been a psychopath, and there never was a triggering moment that caused him to go insane, that he's always just been evil. So I like that multiple choice aspect, and that's played out a little bit in the DC Rebirth with the multiple Jokers. I'm curious how that may play out. So just bringing it back in, saying how it's still relevant with the comics coming out in the stands now.
Very cool. Anthony?
Again, I loved it. I thought it was a tremendous project. And again, when you try to retell the classics, right, sometimes it's a very hard undertaking, because even on the cinematic side, with some of the things that both companies are trying to do, they don't always hit the mark. X-Men: Age of Apocalypse, you know, to me didn't really hit home as well as it could, but when they completely went off the board with X-Men First Class, I felt like they hit a home run. And so that's really the thing about the classics, is it's not always hard to tell them or to recreate the comic books in a great way. in movies or in animation, but also, telling original stories or telling an original version of the story can be a lot of fun. And I feel like that this project told the old story, but also told it in an original way that was a lot of fun. And I felt like the ending of the movie, if they would have done that, maybe there will be another Batman movie. But if they were to use the ending for this for one of the other movies, I feel like that would have people talking just as much as Batman: The Dark Knight, just because the way that it ended. If you had not seen it, or if you weren't familiar with the comic, you were not expecting it to end like that. And so I think that if you're listening to this and you haven't read the comic book, or seen this yet, you're going to, I don't know, you may be disappointed, you may enjoy it, but I feel like if something like that played out in a live action movie, it's something that would set the internet afire, because I really enjoyed the way that they ended the movie.
All right, and we have come to the end here of our podcast. Thanks for joining us for an Infinite Danger Room podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Danger Infinite. You can also look for Infinite Danger Room on Facebook, and our episodes are being released via the News OK account on SoundCloud. So keep track of us there, and we'll be back soon with more podcasts for you. Thanks for listening.